Hey guys, Scott here. Now recently we've had Jim Chalmers come out and talk about housing again. He's saying this government is doing a better job than the previous one. He's saying housing investment is rising. More homes are being built, and I actually broke some of that down in a previous video. What he meant by that and how those numbers were being framed versus what's actually happening on the ground. If you haven't seen that, go back and watch it as well. But in this video, I want to go a step further because it's not just that Jim Chalmers is wrong about building enough homes. I'm going to show you why it's actually impossible for this government to build enough housing to fix the problem. We already know they've missed the mark this year. They were meant to deliver around 240,000 homes. They've approved roughly 180,000. And we don't even know how many of those actually get built. And we've all seen what that's done to the housing market. Prices are up around 10% this year, and very similar numbers next year as well. So if you're sitting there thinking rates are high, maybe next year the market finally slows down, I'm going to show you exactly why that's not going to happen. Because this isn't about interest rates anymore. It's not about sentiment. It's not even about policy intent. There are structural problems in the construction sector that the government simply cannot fix fast enough, no matter who is in power. In this video, I'm not giving you opinions. No fluff, no politics, just hard data, simple logic, and charts that explain why, statistically, Australia will not build enough homes and what that means for the housing market heading into 2026. So let's start with what we keep being told by the government. We're told housing investment is rising, more money is flowing into construction, and progress is finally being made. And look, technically, some of those numbers have actually lifted off the lows we saw after COVID. That part is actually not made up. But here's the thing that doesn't add up for me. If all this investment is actually working, why does housing still feel completely cooked? Why does every rental inspection feel like a zoo? Why are rents still climbing? Why does it feel impossible for normal people to get ahead? That's because investment on its own doesn't build homes. What matters is what comes out the other end, and that's where the story falls apart. So this is the bit nobody likes talking about because it's not political, it's structural. Over the past couple of decades, most parts of the Australian economy figured out how to get more efficient. Finance got faster, technology scaled. Even agriculture learned how to produce more with fewer inputs. However, construction didn't. In fact, construction went the other way. Today, we're actually building fewer homes per hour worked than we used to. So despite all of the extra rules, approvals, compliance, systems, and oversight, we're getting less output than ever before. That's not a short-term problem. That's a system that stopped working. And no government announcement, subsidy, or incentive program is going to fix that overnight. Now, here's the part that hits buyers and renters directly. The time it takes to build homes has blown out massively. Units now take longer. Townhouses also take longer. Detached houses are also taking longer to build. What used to take a couple of years now drags on and on. When projects take longer, costs creep higher. When costs creep higher, fewer projects stack up. And when fewer projects get started today, the shortage shows up a few years down the track. That's why housing policy always feels late. Governments react to shortages that were locked in years earlier. You can't rush a system that's already clogged and that's already broken. Now layer this on top. Construction costs are up roughly 40% since the pandemic. Materials are more expensive, labor is more expensive, finance is more expensive, but productivity hasn't improved to offset any of it. So every new home has become riskier to deliver, margins are tighter, builders fail, developers pull back, and when they do build, they're pushed toward higher end projects because that's the only way the numbers work. That's not greed, it's actually survival on their part. And it's exactly why affordable supply keeps shrinking. The exact properties first-home buyers, young people that are getting started on the property ladder actually need access to. Now we want to add the final pressure point. Australia's population is still growing quickly. Migration remains high. More people need somewhere to live. But here's the mismatch. For every 100 new residents, Australia needs roughly 5 extra construction workers just to keep up. We're nowhere near that. Only about 3% of recent migrants work in residential construction. So we're importing demand without importing the workforce needed to house that extra demand. To house new residents properly, you need a construction workforce that grows alongside that population, and that is simply not happening. That gap doesn't close on its own. It just pushes pressure into rents, prices, and availability. Again, this isn't ideology, it's math. Let's bring this back to reality. If you're a first-home buyer, this explains why it feels so hard. The government keeps saying it's helping, but almost all of that help sits on the demand side. They bring in more people and they roll out more buyer schemes to help people to buy. They're not making sure enough tradies are coming in. They're not speeding up builds. They're not removing the structural blockages that slow everything down. So you end up with more people chasing the same small pool of homes. And unless those structural issues change, it doesn't get easier. People just fight harder for something that should be a basic human right. Now, if you're an everyday investor, I'm not talking about those investors with dozens and dozens of properties. I'm talking about hardworking nurses, tradies, teachers, people just looking for 1 to 3 investments. This does explain a lot. If the government can't deliver enough housing, and all the evidence says they can't, then private investors have to fill that gap by keeping rental stock available. This creates an extremely rare opportunity for everyday investors. You've got a market which does not have enough housing being built. You've got a growing population. Rents are under pressure today. Vacancy rates are near zero today and are only looking to get worse over time. That combination means you're not guessing where demand will come from. You know the demand is there. This isn't about speculation. It's about building something people need. This is a golden window for investors who want stability, strong tenant demand, reliable cash flow, and long-term security, because the supply side simply isn't catching up. That's not hype. That's just how the math works. So here's the question I'll leave with you. If construction productivity is broken, build times keep stretching, costs keep rising, and population keeps growing, what exactly is meant to bring prices down? Let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, this is your daily property update. This is your video every single day for 5 to 7 minutes, giving you a breakdown on the Australian property market so that you can become a property insider. Make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss a video.